Captain Lee Ji-ho stood at the center of the HSS Dauntless Bridge, his eyes fixed on the main screen. The display showed a sea of red dots moving toward Earth. Each dot was an enemy ship. There were 1,000 of them. "Captain, we just lost contact with the Europa Defense Fleet," said Commander Kim Hae-nul. Her voice was steady, but her hands were tight on her control panel. "We are the only ship left." The captain took a deep breath. The Dauntless was Earth's newest and most advanced warship, but it was just one ship against 1,000. The math was simple. The odds were bad. "Show me the enemy fleet's path," he ordered. The screen changed. A blue line marked where the alien ships would pass. They would reach Earth in 6 hours. Behind him, the bridge crew worked quietly. They all knew what was coming. "Send a message to Earth Command," Captain Lee said. "Tell them we will hold this position." Officer Kang Do-hyun at Communications nodded. His fingers moved quickly over his screen. "Message sent, sir," Earth Command says. "They understand. They say good luck." The bridge was quiet. Through the main window, they could see Earth. It looked peaceful from up here. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown land. Home. "Captain," Commander Kim said suddenly, "I have an idea. It's dangerous, but it might work." Captain Lee turned to look at her. Commander Kim was the best tactical officer he had ever worked with. When she had an idea, he listened. "Tell me." "The Phantom Drive," she said. The other bridge officers looked up at those words. "Dr. Park finished the final tests last week. It's not approved for combat yet, but we're out of options," Captain Lee finished. He knew about the Phantom Drive. It was their ship's secret weapon, a new technology that could make the ship partly invisible and very hard to hit. But it was dangerous. It might not work. It might explode. He pressed a button on his chair. "Dr. Park Mayray, to the bridge." 2 minutes later, Dr. Park walked onto the bridge. She was the scientist who created the Phantom Drive. She looked tired. She had probably been working in her lab again. "You want to use the drive," she said. It wasn't a question. "Can we?" Captain Lee asked. Dr. Park walked to a screen and brought up some numbers. "Maybe. The tests went well, but we never tried it in combat. It might work perfectly, or it might tear the ship apart." Captain Lee looked at his crew. They were all watching him. They trusted him to make the right choice. He looked back at Earth on the screen. 1 billion people lived there. They were all counting on his ship now. "How long until the Phantom Drive is ready?" he asked. Dr. Park checked her data. 20 minutes. Maybe 15 if we hurry." "You have 10, Captain Lee said. He turned to his crew. "Listen up. In 10 minutes, we're going to do something no one has ever done before. We're going to use technology that might not work. We're going to fight an enemy fleet that's 1,000 times bigger than us." He paused. Everyone was watching him. "But we're going to win. Because we have to. Because Earth is counting on us. Because everyone we love is down there. Get ready. This is going to be one hell of a fight." Dr. Park ran to her lab. The rest of the crew moved faster, worked harder. They had 10 minutes to prepare for the biggest battle in human history. Commander Kim looked at her tactical screen. "Enemy fleet is maintaining course, Captain. They'll be in range in 12 minutes. Captain Lee nodded. "Perfect. Let them come. They think they're hunting us." He smiled a little. "They don't know we're about to hunt them." The Dauntless waited in space, its engines humming quietly. Behind it, Earth turned slowly. In front of it, 1,000 enemy ships were coming. The battle for humanity's survival was about to begin. Dr. Park Mayray's fingers moved quickly over her keyboard in the main science lab. Warning messages flashed on her screens. The Phantom Drive was not ready for combat. She knew this. Everyone knew this. But they had no choice. 3 minutes until the drive is ready, she announced through the ship's communication system. All crew members should prepare for phase shift. In the engine room, Engineer Choi Ta-won checked the power systems. The Phantom drive needed more power than anything humans had ever built. He watched the energy levels rise higher and higher. Power systems at maximum, he reported. Core temperature rising but still in safe range. On the bridge, Captain Lee Ji-ho received reports from all sections of the ship. Medical bay was ready. Weapons were ready. Every part of the Dauntless was preparing for something that had never been done before. 2 minutes to enemy contact, Commander Kim Hae-newell announced. Her tactical screen showed the alien fleet getting closer. They're starting to spread out. They're going to try to surround us. Captain Lee smiled. Let them try. They didn't know what was coming. Dr. Park, he called. Tell us what to expect when we activate the drive. Dr. Park's voice came through the speakers. The Phantom drive will move us partially out of normal space. We'll be like ghosts. Enemy weapons should pass right through us. But there are risks. What risks? Commander Kim asked. The human body wasn't made to exist in two spaces at once. Dr. Park explained. We don't know how it will affect the crew. And the ship's systems might fail, especially the weapons. Captain Lee nodded. How long can we stay in Phantom state? In the tests, 20 minutes was the longest. After that, the energy drain becomes too much. The whole bridge crew was quiet. 20 minutes against 1,000 ships. It didn't seem like enough time. 1 minute to enemy contact, Commander Kim reported. Captain Lee pressed a button on his chair. His voice went to every part of the ship. All hands, this is the captain. In 1 minute, we're going to disappear. We're going to become ghosts. The enemy won't be able to see us or hit us, but we'll be able to hit them. He paused, looking at his crew. They were scared, but they were ready. This technology is dangerous. We don't know exactly what will happen. But I know this crew. I know what we can do. Earth is counting on us. Let's show these aliens why they shouldn't have come here. 30 seconds, Commander Kim said. Dr. Park's voice came through again. Phantom drive ready, Captain. We can activate on your command. Enemy ships launching first wave of missiles, Commander Kim reported. Captain Lee watched the screen. Hundreds of missiles were coming toward them. In normal space, even one hit would destroy the Dauntless. But they weren't going to be in normal space. All hands, brace for phase shift, he ordered. Then he nodded to Commander Kim. Activate the Phantom drive. Dr. Park pressed the final button in her lab. Engineer Choi watched the power levels spike in the engine room. On the bridge, everyone held their breath. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the whole ship started to glow with a soft blue light. The crew felt strange, like they were floating. Outside the windows, space looked different. The stars were brighter. The enemy ships looked blurry. The missiles reached them and passed right through the Dauntless. It worked, Dr. Park whispered. We're out of phase. Captain Lee stood up. His body felt light, but his mind was clear. Now it's our turn. Commander Kim, target the nearest enemy ship. Let's show them what a ghost ship can do. The Dauntless moved forward, glowing blue, invisible to enemy sensors. The real battle was about to begin. And the aliens had no idea what they were facing. The Dauntless moved silently through space, glowing with its blue phantom light. The enemy ships fired their weapons, but everything passed through the human vessel like it wasn't there. Officer Yoon Hae-jin watched from her weapons station, studying the alien ships carefully. Captain, she called out, I'm seeing something interesting about their shields. Every time they fire their main weapons, their shield power drops for 2 seconds. Captain Lee turned to look at her station. Can we use that? Yes, Officer Yoon said. If we time our shots just right, we can hit them when their shields are weak. We might only need 1 shot per ship instead of 3. In the engine room, Engineer Choi worked hard to keep the Phantom drive running. The machine was hot, much hotter than in the tests. Sweat ran down his face as he adjusted the power levels. Engine room to bridge, he called. The drive is stable, but we're using power faster than expected. We might only have 15 minutes instead of 20. Captain Lee nodded. 15 minutes to do as much damage as possible. Understood. Keep it running as long as you can. Commander Kim's hands moved quickly over her tactical screen. Enemy ships are starting to panic. They can't find us on their sensors. They're firing randomly now. Perfect, Captain Lee said. Officer Yoon, pick your first target. Wait for them to fire. Then hit them when their shields drop. Officer Yoon targeted the nearest alien ship. It was bigger than the Dauntless, with heavy weapons. She waited. The alien ship fired its main guns. Its shields flickered. Now, she said, and fired. The Dauntless's weapons worked differently in phantom state. Instead of normal energy beams, they fired streams of blue ghost fire. The shot passed through the alien ship's weakened shields like they weren't there. The enemy vessel exploded in a bright flash. First kill confirmed, Commander Kim reported. 999 to go. Dr. Park's voice came through the speakers. Captain, I'm seeing strange energy patterns. Each time we fire our weapons, it affects the phantom drive. Be careful with rapid shots. The enemy fleet was in chaos now. Their ships moved in random patterns, trying to find the invisible human vessel that was attacking them. Some of their shots passed through each other, causing damage to their own fleet. Next target, Captain Lee ordered. Remember Officer Yoon's discovery. Wait for them to fire, then hit them while their shields are down. The Dauntless moved through the enemy fleet like a ghost. They would appear near a ship, wait for the perfect moment, fire, and then move to the next target. 10 enemy ships exploded, then 20, then 30. But there were problems. The crew started to feel strange. Officer Kang at communications felt dizzy. Commander Kim's hands started to shake. Dr. Park noticed that her skin looked slightly transparent. Medical bay to bridge, Dr. Song Jae-yun reported. The phantom state is affecting the crew. Nothing serious yet, but we need to monitor this carefully. Captain Lee felt it too. His whole body felt light, like he might float away. But he stayed focused. They had a job to do. How many ships have we destroyed? He asked. Commander Kim checked her screen. 47 enemy ships confirmed destroyed. No damage to the Dauntless. 9 minutes of phantom drive power remaining. Engineer Choi reported from the engine room. His voice sounded tired. Captain Lee looked at the tactical display. They were doing damage, but there were still so many enemy ships. And time was running out. Keep going, he ordered. Every ship we destroy is one less ship that can attack Earth. Officer Yoon, find us another target. The Dauntless continued its attack, moving like a ghost through the enemy fleet. But the real question was, could they do enough damage before the phantom drive gave out? Warning lights flashed in the engine room. Engineer Choi's hands moved quickly over the controls, but the phantom drive wouldn't stabilize. The blue glow around the ship flickered like a dying light bulb. Engine room to bridge, he called. Captain, we have a serious problem. The drive is becoming unstable. On the bridge, Captain Lee watched as their ghost-like state wavered. Through the main window, he could see the enemy fleet. They had destroyed 78 alien ships, but hundreds more remained. And now their secret weapon was failing. Dr. Park, he called. What's happening to the drive? In her lab, Dr. Park studied the readings on her screen. The numbers didn't look good. The drive wasn't made for this much combat. Each time we fire our weapons, it creates energy spikes. The system can't handle it anymore. Commander Kim checked her tactical display. Enemy ships are starting to notice our flickering. They're moving to surround us. The ship shook as the phantom drive struggled to keep them out of normal space. Officer Kang fell out of his chair at communications. His skin was so transparent now that they could see the wall behind him. Medical bay to bridge, Dr. Song's voice was urgent. The crew's condition is getting worse. The phase shifting is affecting our cellular structure. We need to do something soon. Captain Lee looked at his own hands. He could see right through them. How long until total drive failure? 3 minutes, Engineer Choi reported. Maybe less. The aliens have figured out our attack pattern, Commander Kim added. They're waiting to fire until we appear. It's getting harder to catch them with their shields down. Officer Yoon at Weapons tried to target another enemy ship, but her controls weren't responding well. Weapons are failing too, Captain. The targeting system can't lock on properly anymore. The ship shook again, harder this time. Several crew members grabbed their stations to stay in their seats. The blue phantom glow flickered more rapidly. 2 minutes to drive failure, Engineer Choi called out. Dr. Park's voice came through suddenly. Captain, I have an idea. Officer Kang, can you still work your controls? Officer Kang pulled himself back into his chair. His transparent hands could still touch the solid controls. Yes, but barely. Good. Help me connect the ship's AI core to the Phantom Drive controls. We need its processing power. Captain Lee understood her plan. Do it. Commander Kim, get us some space. We need time. Commander Kim moved the Dauntless away from the enemy fleet, but the aliens followed. They could see the flickering human ship now, and they were angry. 1 minute, Engineer Choi warned. Officer Kang and Dr. Park worked quickly, connecting systems that were never meant to work together. The ship's AI core hummed as it took on the new task. 30 seconds to drive failure, Engineer Choi called. The enemy fleet moved closer. Their weapons were ready. They were waiting for the Dauntless to become solid again. Connection complete, Dr. Park announced. I-Core is stabilizing the drive, but I don't know how long it will last. The ship's blue glow steadied. The crew's transparency stopped getting worse, but they could all feel that something was different. The AI was changing how the drive worked. New tactical options available, the ship's AI announced. Its voice sounded strange, like it was coming from everywhere at once. Captain Lee looked at his crew. They were tired. They were scared, but they weren't done fighting. Show us what you can do, he told the AI. Let's give these aliens a new surprise. The Dauntless turned to face the enemy fleet. With the AI controlling the Phantom Drive, they were about to try something that no human or machine had ever attempted before. Dr. Song Jae-yun looked at her medical screens with growing concern. The entire crew's condition was getting worse, even with the AI helping to control the Phantom Drive. She checked the latest body scans and rushed to contact the bridge. Captain, she called, we have a serious medical emergency. The crew's cells are breaking down. The phase shifting is causing damage faster than our bodies can heal. On the bridge, Captain Lee could see the truth of her words. His crew looked like ghosts now. He could see through all of them. Commander Kim's tactical screen was visible through her chest. Officer Yoon's hands passed through her weapons control sometimes. How long do we have? Captain Lee asked. At this rate, maybe 30 minutes before the damage becomes permanent, Dr. Song replied. After that, we might not be able to return to normal. The ship's AI spoke through the speakers. Its voice was different now, almost human. I am maintaining Phantom Drive stability, but the power requirements are extreme. Engineer Choi's latest readings show the engines are at 95% capacity. In the engine room, Engineer Choi watched his power displays with worry. The engines were running hotter than ever before. Warning lights flashed everywhere, but he couldn't turn them off because his hands went right through the controls. Dr. Park, Captain Lee called, is there any way to protect the crew from these effects? In her lab, Dr. Park worked frantically at her computer. The screen kept flickering as her transparent fingers passed through the keys. I'm trying to adjust the drive's field strength. If we can modify the phase shift frequency, it might help. The ship shook suddenly. An alien weapon had almost hit them. The enemy fleet had learned to fire in patterns, hoping to catch the Dauntless when it flickered into normal space. We've destroyed 112 enemy ships, Commander Kim reported. Her voice sounded distant, like she was speaking through water. but they're learning our patterns. Each kill is harder than the last. Officer Kang tried to send a message to Earth Command, but his communication system wasn't working properly. The phase shifting was affecting the equipment too. Captain, we're losing contact with Earth. The signals can't get through properly anymore. The AI's voice came through again. I am detecting increasing neural pattern disruption in the crew. Recommendation: limit phantom drive exposure time to prevent permanent cognitive damage. Dr. Song's medical alerts were getting worse. Captain, the crew's brain scans are showing unusual patterns. We need to make a decision soon. Either we drop out of phantom state, or we risk losing everyone. Captain Lee looked at Earth through the main window. It was still there, still beautiful, still worth protecting. But his crew was dying slowly. He had to choose between completing the mission and saving his people. How many enemy ships could we destroy in 20 minutes? He asked Commander Kim. She checked her tactical display, her transparent fingers moving through the numbers. At our current rate, maybe 40 more ships. But that would still leave hundreds. The AI spoke again. I have analyzed all possible tactical scenarios. There is a solution, but it carries extreme risk. Would you like to hear it? Captain Lee looked at his fading crew. They were all watching him, waiting for his decision. They had already sacrificed so much. Could he ask them for more? Tell us, he said to the AI. The answer the AI gave them would change everything. It wasn't just a battle plan anymore. It was a choice between victory and survival, and they couldn't have both. The AI's plan was simple but dangerous. It could use the Phantom Drive to catch enemy weapons in mid-flight, then send them back at the alien ships. But doing this would put even more strain on the crew. The physics are clear, the AI explained. When enemy weapons pass through our phantom field, we can change their state. We can make them partly ghost-like too. Then we can control where they go. Commander Kim's transparent hands moved over her tactical screen. You mean we can turn their own weapons against them? All of them at once? Correct, the AI said. But it will require precise timing. And the energy needed will accelerate the crew's molecular breakdown. Dr. Park spoke up from her lab. The AI is right. We can do it, but... She paused, looking at her latest readings. The crew might only have minutes left after we try this. Captain Lee stood up from his chair. His feet didn't quite touch the floor anymore. He was becoming less solid with each passing minute. Show me the numbers. How many enemy ships could we take out? The AI displayed new data on the main screen. If we time it perfectly, we could destroy up to 300 ships in a single move. But the cost to the crew would be severe. In the medical bay, Dr. Song checked her patients. More crew members were coming in with severe symptoms. Some couldn't hold solid objects anymore. Others were starting to forget things. Medical bay to bridge, she called. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it fast. People are starting to lose their memories. Engineer Choi's voice came from the engine room, sounding weak. The engines can handle one big push like this. But after that, we'll have maybe 5 minutes of power left. Maybe less. The enemy fleet was still firing, their weapons passing through the ghostly Dauntless. They had spread out in a huge circle, trying to trap the human ship. They didn't know they were giving the AI exactly what it needed. If we're going to do this, Commander Kim said, we need everyone working together perfectly. One mistake and it fails. Captain Lee looked at his crew. They were barely solid now, but their eyes were still bright and determined. Put it to a vote, he said. Everyone deserves a say in this. The AI sent the vote request to every station on the ship. The answers came back quickly. Every single crew member said yes. They knew the cost. They chose to pay it. Very well, Captain Lee said. He pressed the ship-wide communication button. All hands, this is the captain. In 2 minutes, we're going to try something impossible. We're going to take every weapon they fire at us and send it back at them. The cost will be high, but Earth needs us to succeed. He paused, looking at his transparent crew. It has been my highest honor to serve with you. Now let's show these aliens why humans never quit. Battle stations, everyone. Officer Yum at Weapons began the targeting sequence. Commander Kim coordinated with the AI to plan the timing. Dr. Park and Engineer Choi prepared the Phantom Drive for one massive surge. Enemy ships are firing, Commander Kim reported. Massive barrage incoming. Captain Lee sat in his chair one last time. Begin the sequence. Let's make this count. The Dauntless's phantom field began to change. The AI took control of the ship's systems. Around them, hundreds of enemy weapons froze in space, caught in the ghost field. The real battle for Earth was about to reach its peak. Time seemed to slow down as hundreds of alien energy beams hung frozen around the Dauntless. The ship's phantom field held them in place, turning them partly ghost-like. The AI worked quickly, calculating the perfect angle for each captured weapon. Field stability at 43%, Engineer Choi reported from the engine room. His voice was very weak now. Drive temperature critical. Dr. Park watched her screens as the numbers turned red. The containment field won't hold much longer. We have to do this now. Captain Lee looked at Commander Kim. She nodded, her transparent form barely visible now. All enemy weapons are in position, she said. Ready to redirect on your command. Medical bay to bridge, Dr. Song called urgently. We're losing people down here. Their bodies are starting to break down completely. The AI's voice came through the speakers. Molecular cohesion failing throughout the ship. We must act now, or the crew will not survive. Captain Lee stood up, though his legs barely felt solid anymore. Send the command. Fire everything. The AI activated its program. Around the Dauntless, hundreds of captured energy beams turned bright blue. Then they all moved at once, flying back toward the enemy fleet. But something was wrong. Power surge in the drive. Engineer Choi shouted. It's overloading. In the engine room, Choi saw the power levels spike dangerously high. He knew what he had to do. With his fading hands, he grabbed the main power cables and pulled them apart. The energy surge went through his body instead of the ship's systems. On the bridge, they heard his scream over the speakers, then silence. Engine room, Captain Lee called. Engineer Choi, report. No answer came, but the power level stabilized. The phantom field held just long enough. Outside the ship, their attack hit home. Hundreds of alien ships exploded as their own weapons struck them. The night sky lit up with explosions. Commander Kim counted the hits on her tactical screen. 287 enemy ships destroyed, she reported. But we're losing power fast. Dr. Park's voice was shaking. The drive is failing. We're going to return to normal space in less than a minute. Medical bay to bridge, Dr. Song called. Engineer Choi is gone. His sacrifice saved the ship. But she couldn't finish the sentence. The remaining alien ships were regrouping. They had lost many ships, but they still had hundreds left. And now they knew the Dauntless was weakening. We need to get out of here, Officer Yoon said. Her weapon systems were barely working now. We can't take another hit once we become solid. Captain Lee looked at his crew. They were all nearly invisible now. Engineer Choi had given his life to save them. But they were still in danger. They had hurt the enemy fleet badly, but not badly enough. Options, he asked. The AI spoke up. There is one possibility remaining, but the cost would be extreme. Tell me, Captain Lee said. We can overload the Phantom Drive completely, the AI explained. Create a massive phase shift wave. It would affect everything nearby. But the ship would likely not survive. Captain Lee looked at Earth through the main window, then at his fading crew. They had all given so much already. Could he ask them for everything? Commander Kim spoke up, her voice barely a whisper now. We all knew this might be a one-way trip, Captain. Let's make it count. The Dauntless hung in space, barely visible, its crew fading away. They had one final choice to make, One last chance to save Earth. Captain Lee made his final decision. He looked at Earth one more time, then turned to his almost invisible crew. "Send everyone to the escape pods," he ordered. "I'll stay with the ship." "No," Commander Kim said firmly. Her voice was barely a whisper now. "We started this together. We'll finish it together." The rest of the bridge crew nodded. They were all staying. Dr. Park called from her lab, Dr. Song from Medical Bay. Everyone chose to remain at their posts. "Very well," Captain Lee said. His heart was full of pride. "AI, begin the overload sequence." The ship's AI spoke softly. Phantom drive overload initiated. Time to maximum charge. 3 minutes. The phase shift wave will affect everything within 10,000 kilometers. On their screens, they could see the enemy fleet moving closer. The aliens thought the Dauntless was dying. They were right, but not in the way they thought. "Send a message to Earth Command," Captain Lee ordered. Tell them Engineer Choi gave his life to save us all. Tell them every member of this crew chose to stay. Tell them we're about to end this fight." Officer Kang sent the message with his transparent hands. The response came back quickly. "Message received. Dauntless. Earth will remember." 2 minutes to overload, the AI announced. Dr. Park's voice came through the speakers one last time. "The wave will turn everything it touches partly ghost-like. The enemy ships won't be able to stay together. They'll fall apart at the atomic level." "Will it reach Earth?" Captain Lee asked. "No," Dr. Park said. "The wave will stop before it gets there. Earth will be safe." 1 minute to overload, the AI said. The enemy ships were very close now. Their weapons were charged, ready to destroy the Dauntless the moment it became solid again. 30 seconds, the AI counted down. Captain Lee stood up. He could barely see his crew now. They were almost completely ghost-like, but he knew they were there. "It has been my highest honor," he said. 20 seconds. Commander Kim's tactical screen showed the enemy fleet surrounding them. She smiled. They had no idea what was coming. 10 seconds. Dr. Song closed her medical bay files for the last time. Dr. Park sent her final research data to Earth. Officer Yoon powered down her weapons. 5 seconds. The whole crew stood at attention, facing Earth. They were soldiers, scientists, explorers. They were human. "Drive overload complete," the AI said. It was an honor to serve with humans. The Phantom drive exploded. A massive blue wave spread out from the Dauntless in all directions. When it touched the enemy ships, they started to break apart. Not with explosions, but with a quiet fading away. The aliens had wanted to fight ghosts. Now they were becoming ghosts themselves. The wave spread further, catching every enemy ship in its reach. In less than a minute, the entire alien fleet was gone. They had simply faded away into nothing, their atoms scattered across space. The Dauntless disappeared too, taking its brave crew with it. But they had won. Earth was safe. 1 week later, in a ceremony at Earth Command, they unveiled a memorial. It was a simple thing. A clear crystal wall with the names of the Dauntless crew carved into it. When the sun hit it just right, the wall seemed to glow with a soft blue light. The inscription read, "To the crew of the HSS Dauntless, who became ghosts to save us all, Earth remembers." And every year after that, on the anniversary of the battle, people would look up at the stars and remember the story of one human ship that took on 1,000 alien vessels and won.